Here's where the porculus money, the $17,000 per person, they're taking from you, right? It had to come from you. It's not, there's no money fairy. Less than 9% goes to combating COVID. I thought it was the COVID porculus. It's the 9%, Joe. 9% COVID porculus. It's the 91% non-COVID porculus. 27% goes to basically bail out state and local governments. Gosh, that sounds fair. You just moved to Florida. Now you're paying for your buddies in San Francisco to pay for weed and booze for homeless folks in hotels in San Francisco. Oh, yeah, we covered that story yesterday. Another 21% goes to policies that reduce private sector employment. Wow, that sounds great. What a gem that is. $135 million for the National Endowment for the Arts. That sounds really important in a COVID crisis. I don't know what we'd do without the National Endowment for the Arts. Another $135 million for the National Endowment for the Humanities. The humanities people were really pissed. They were like, you gave the arts people $135 million. You better throw $135 million our way too. And they were like, hey, it's not our money. We don't give a... Another $200 million, Joe, for the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Oh, yeah. Man, without that, this COVID crisis will go on forever. Of course, you kind of, and $12 billion for foreign aid. That's really, I'm sure that's going to do a lot to solve the COVID crisis here. $12 billion for the foreign government. So that's really terrific. So I'm going to ask you the question again in segment number 1 here. If government spending is so delicious and makes us wealthier and more prosperous, then why not just spend more? And I'm going to ask you this follow-up question. What other service or product in your life would you spend $17,000 on per person, or your family $69,000 on, and get so little in return? Again, liberals, by the way, if I'm a little hyped up today, I'm sorry, I have some inflammation in my lungs, so I had to take 2 shots of albuterol in my lungs, and it really geeks me up like you wouldn't believe. I'm not even kidding. It's like mainlining some drug or something. That's why, because I know Gee's like, gosh, you sound a little hyper today. A little bit. Yeah. But the subject matter's good too.
Thank you.
Joe's even wondering. He's like, what's wrong with this guy? Would you drop a nitric oxide tablet or something? That too, earlier in the morning. What other product or service have you spent your family $69,000 on to get so little in return? And why haven't you asked the question that doesn't sound right? So you spent $69,000 because the government, again, folks, logic, the government only gets money from its citizens. It doesn't produce anything of value. It takes from you. So it took from your family $69,000 and it gave to you back $135,000 for the National Arts and Humanities, got another $135, $200 million for the Dewey Decimal System Library Services Agency or whatever that was, $12 billion of foreign governments. If another company came to you, Joey Bag of Donuts Inc., and said, Bongino family, I want $69,000 from you. Okay, what do you want? Is there some great investment, new tech company? What do you got? What are you offering? A brand new, car? Be a nice car, $69,000. You probably get yourself a 2-year-old Corvette, right? Maybe a 3-4-year-old Escalade. That's a nice thing. What do I get for it? No, Bongino family. So we're going to cut you a check for $1,400 back. Okay. And we're going to send the rest of your money to the Dewey Decimal System and to Kazakhstan. You'd be like, again, Joe, audience ombudsman for an emotional reality check. Yeah. If you were part of you're part of the Armacost fan, although you're part Scottish or English, right? So I think they're called clans over there. So I'm part of the Bongino family, well, La Familia, because I'm Italian, well, half actually, but half enough, right? My wife's actually Colombian. So, my kids are all over the place. We've traveled the world there. So I'm just checking, if you were part of the Bongino clan for a minute and they came to you for that, or La Familia, and said, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to take your $69,000, cut you a check for $1,400, and we're going to send the rest to Kazakhstan and the Dewey Decimal System. How would you feel about that?
Well, hold on there, Count Porcula. Back it up a little bit.
You would say, that doesn't sound good.
No.
Right?
No.
I'm just checking. I'm just saying. The Kenny Bell. The Kenny Bell.
There you go.
Just, I didn't acknowledge the Rush Limbaugh bell at the beginning of the show, but we should do that every day forever because we owe it to Great Rush. But again, we're doing a simple logic exercise. If you're a liberal at the end of this segment and you're smart, you should be asking questions like, okay, I know you hate my guts because I'm Dan Bongino and I'm a conservative. I get that. I understand. I roll with the punches. I have a thin skin, not a thick skin. It still bothers me, but whatevs. But you should be saying, even though you hate me, like, gosh, he kind of makes sense. If we're spending money we don't have, taking the money from people who are citizens, and you just said, well, Dan, you just said we don't have it. Yeah, they're taking it from your future income. That's where deficit spending comes from, not your income today, because you don't have it. They're taking it from your future income. So 2 points. You haven't given us a limit on what government spending, where the red line is, because you don't know it, which would mean you should be a little more careful. And secondly, is there a product or service out there you would spend that kind of money on and get what you've been offered by the government? The answer is not only a no, it's a resounding hell no, I wouldn't. Sticking with this theme here. If government spending's good, why not spend more? And how much more should we spend? And what happens when we spend too much? Questions sane people would ask, like us, not the liberals listening. You haven't asked any of this stuff. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, my gosh, we don't have a spending problem, Dan. It's a taxing problem. We spend a lot, but our debts and deficits are largely caused by not taxing those evil rich people enough. That's really weird because there's a great article in CNS News, a really terrific outlet today. It'll be in my newsletter. Again, Bongino.com/newsletter to access the article. Or you can just look it up direct. Here's the headline by Terrence Jeffrey, who does great work on this subject. Trifecta, federal taxes, spending, and deficit all set records through February. So for the liberals listening, thinking we definitely have a taxing problem, not a spending problem. We can spend more because we just set a record, literally a record. And you know, I hate that word, literally a record for federal tax revenue. And we also set a record at the same time for a deficit in the same period, which if you're, shall we play a game? Logic, if then equations, right? If taxing is a problem, then how come we just set a record for tax revenue and set a record for our deficit too? Because we're spending too much. If then, logic equations. I know it's hard for you liberals, but just think it through for a minute. Go register in an online Khan Academy class, Logic 101, modus tollens, modus ponens, whatever it is. From the CNS piece, quote, federal taxes, federal spending, and the federal deficit all set records in the first 5 months of fiscal year 2021, which is October through February. It doesn't marry up with the calendar year, according to the monthly Treasury statement released today. In other words, this is government data, libs, in case you think we're making it up. It's the Treasury under the Biden administration that released these numbers. I didn't make them up. Federal taxes hit a record $1.4 trillion for the October through February period. Yet federal spending hit a record too of $2.4 trillion, which resulted in a record deficit of obviously $1,046,654 million. Again, simple logic, folks, logic games. If taxing is the problem and we should be taxing people more, how come we just hit people with a record number of taxes as we raise the most amount of money we've ever raised and we're now running the biggest deficit ever? The answer is, if you're logical and smart, some of you are in the liberal ecosystem, some of you aren't, it's because we're spending too much money.